Inside these cabinets are some of the most advanced technologies humanity has ever created. They contain computer chips designed by a company called NVIDIA, who produce by far the best and most powerful chips in the world. Over the last few years, demand for these chips has skyrocketed, enabling NVIDIA to rake in tens of billions in profits and pushing their stock price up to a level which values them at over $5 trillion US, more than any other company in the world. But how did a relatively unknown company from the gaming industry rise so quickly? Well, because these chips power artificial intelligence. And as the big tech companies like Google, Meta, Microsoft and Amazon are locked in an arms race to develop the most powerful artificial intelligence, they're collectively spending hundreds of billions of dollars on NVIDIA's chips. But in November 2025, the investor Michael Burry, who's best known for predicting the 2008 financial crash, shorted NVIDIA's stock, meaning that he'd profit if their share price were to crash. But why would he do that if NVIDIA were making record profits? Well, Michael Burry, along with many other investors and commentators, believe that the current growth in the AI industry is unsustainable and that we're actually inside a giant bubble with only a matter of time before it bursts. This is the story of the AI spending bubble and how it threatens to take the stock market and the wider economy down with it. The idea of artificial intelligence has been around for thousands of years, appearing in myths and legends across the centuries. But it wasn't until the invention of the computer in the 1940s that artificial intelligence looked like a distinct possibility. In fact, many of the early computer scientists believed that artificial intelligence smarter than humans was just around the corner, as this was the logical next step for their new invention. But as computers advanced, it became clear that they can't think or reason like us humans can do, and that developing artificial intelligence was actually a lot more difficult than we first thought. AI therefore remained as science fiction, and investment in its development faded away to almost nothing. However, fast forward to the early 2000s, and research in artificial intelligence had picked back up again, and a number of key breakthroughs in machine learning started to attract the attention of big tech companies and venture capitalists. In 2014, Google acquired the AI research lab DeepMind, and in 2016, DeepMind defeated world champion Lee Sedol at a game of Go, a strategy game that was notoriously difficult to teach to computers, representing a key milestone for AI and machine learning. These breakthroughs encouraged more investment, and by the late 2010s, investment in AI development was very strong, and further breakthroughs in research were happening all the time. In 2017, the Transformer architecture was developed, paving the way for large language models, and in 2019, global corporate investment in AI reached $100 billion. But it wasn't until November of 2022 when AI technology really punched through to the public consciousness, coming when a company called OpenAI announced the public release of its newest chatbot.
ChatGPT.
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 ChatGPT was the first real glimpse that the world got at the power and potential of artificial intelligence. It's fair to say that it took the world by storm. Artificial intelligence was no longer science fiction. It was here.
A viral sensation that could completely reset how we do things.
OpenAI reported over 100 million users in ChatGPT's first 3 months, causing the big tech companies to scramble to release their own models. Soon enough, we'd see Google's Gemini and Microsoft's Copilot. Investment in the industry went into overdrive, with hundreds of billions of dollars being poured into research and development, as Google, Apple, Amazon, Meta and Microsoft entered into an arms race, desperate not to get left behind. Investor hype fueled this frenzy, pushing stock prices up to all-time highs, and only encouraged these companies to pour yet more money in. In 2024, global corporate AI investment hit $252 billion, which is more than the GDP of over 120 countries. And at the heart of it all is NVIDIA, whose advanced chips are so crucial for powering AI that they can basically charge any price they want for them, and the big tech companies will buy them, earning NVIDIA billions and billions in profits. So why, in the midst of all this hypermania, has Michael Burry shorted NVIDIA's stock when the rest of the world thinks they'll continue to rake in tens, if not hundreds of billions? Well, as you might have heard, people are beginning to wonder whether this investor frenzy is actually sustainable.
Growing concerns about the valuation of AI companies and fears of an AI bubble.
It seems like bubble mechanics to me, you guys.
I do think there's a bubble of some sort, to be clear.
Fears of an AI bubble have become apparent over the last few months, with Google data showing a massive spike in search volumes in recent times, and even the tech elite themselves are aware of the problem. So why exactly are so many people predicting a bubble? And what might happen to the artificial intelligence industry and the wider economy if it turns out to be true? Well, there are a few key indicators that we might be in a bubble. First of all, because it's very unclear how AI products in their current form can be monetized to make a profit. The vast majority of AI users just use the free version of chatbots, which are themselves incredibly expensive to run. They guzzle massive amounts of electricity and require hugely expensive hardware from NVIDIA and other companies. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, has admitted that even ChatGPT's $200 a month version is unprofitable, as their customers are using it way more than they were expecting. It's no surprise then that OpenAI as a whole is a massive money pit, with Fortune predicting $9 billion worth of losses for the company in 2025. Companies like OpenAI are able to stay afloat if they can attract enough external investment, and it's pretty easy for them to do so at the moment, as investors are giving out money to AI companies like there's no tomorrow. But if they can't figure out how to become profitable soon, then it's only a matter of time before investors pull the plug. And that time might be sooner than we think. Estimates suggest that AI products collectively need to generate $2 trillion in revenue by 2030 to become profitable. So if OpenAI and the many other AI companies can't figure out how to get there quickly, then investors are likely to say enough is enough. $2 trillion, by the way, is more than the combined revenue of Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Nvidia. So getting there is going to be a pretty tall order. The second argument is electricity. The data centers that power artificial intelligence are hugely energy intensive and require massive amounts of electricity. There simply isn't enough grid capacity to support the hugely ambitious plans and promises that AI companies are making. For example, OpenAI alone has made promises to build out 26 gigawatts of data center capacity. Now, 26 gigawatts doesn't have much meaning on its own, but it's an enormous amount of power. For context, a typical nuclear reactor will generate around 1 gigawatt of power, which is enough to power around 800,000 homes. So when we're talking about 26 gigawatts, OpenAI's new data centers would require 26 nuclear reactors to power them, which is equivalent to the power demand of over 20 million homes. So it's fair to say that it would be absolutely impossible for OpenAI to build out these new data centers at any speed, as it would take years, if not decades, to build out the electricity infrastructure to this scale. And thirdly is the circular funding that we're seeing at the moment. You might have seen this monstrosity from Bloomberg floating around recently, and it basically shows a number of key AI financing deals and how the money is basically going round in a loop. Nvidia, for example, have agreed to invest in $100 billion in OpenAI in return for OpenAI turning around and buying Nvidia's chips. In another example, OpenAI has agreed to a $300 billion deal with Oracle. To fulfill this deal, Oracle will have to purchase billions of dollars of Nvidia's chips, but OpenAI can only afford this deal because of their investment from Nvidia. So you can see from this example how the money is essentially flowing around in a circle, from Nvidia to OpenAI to Oracle and then back to Nvidia. And this graphic shows that these types of arrangements are happening all the time within the AI industry, with Nvidia right at the heart of it. This setup has been compared to an Ouroboros, the ancient Greek symbol of a snake eating its own tail, and demonstrates that this circular funding is inherently unsustainable and isn't generating any new value. The money is just going round and round in circles. Okay, so it's looking like we're in some sort of AI bubble. The facts are that AI products are very unprofitable, there isn't the electricity infrastructure to support the grand plans that are being made, and the circular funding that we're seeing might be artificially propping up the industry. But what does all this mean for the stock market and the economy as a whole? And what does it mean for the AI technology itself? Will the artificial intelligence craze stop as quickly as it started? Well, in order to try and answer these questions, it's worth comparing what we're seeing today with what we saw with the early internet in the late 90s and early 2000s. Around this time, there was a lot of the same hype and excitement around the internet and internet companies as there is around AI and AI companies today. Investors would pour billions into new internet startups, even if they were massively loss-making. The joke was that if you had .com in your company's name, you'd be able to find investment from somewhere, regardless of how good your idea was, or even if you were generating any revenue. The investor hype around the early internet pushed the Nasdaq up a massive 600% between 1995 and 2000, only for it to come crashing all the way back down over the next 2 years. This event became known as the .com bubble and triggered a full-blown recession in the economy. And we can see where the similarities can be drawn between this and the AI hype we see today, i.e. lots of excitement around a new and revolutionary technology, and lots of investment into unprofitable products and companies. But before we start worrying that the AI bubble might trigger a global recession, like we saw with the .com bubble, we need to consider some of the key differences that exist now versus what existed back in 2000. Most importantly, a lot of the investment we're seeing in AI is coming from cash on hand of the big tech companies, rather than from via debt, as we saw in the .com bubble. Companies like Google, Meta, and Microsoft have been so profitable over the last 10 years or so, that they've managed to build up mountains of cash. And a lot of the investment into AI that we're seeing is coming from these mountains of cash, which is a much lower risk strategy than investing with debt. In other words, if the investments into AI don't work out, it's not like companies like Meta or Amazon will just collapse. They'll simply just have to take a hit to their cash pile, but will nevertheless be completely fine. And secondly, around the time of the .com crash, interest rates in the economy were on the way up, which many people attribute to worsening the crisis. Whereas in our times, it looks like interest rates are on the way down, which could help to soften the blow on the economy if the AI bubble were to burst. So while we probably are in an AI bubble of some form, we're likely not in for a repeat of a multi-year economic crisis like we saw back in the 2000s. Yes, we might see the stock prices of Nvidia and the other big tech companies come back down to earth, and we might have some casualties along the way. But whether another global recession could be triggered by the bubble bursting is very debatable. And if we think about the dot-com bubble more generally, while it did crash the stock market and the economy, the internet obviously did catch on once the dust settled and revolutionised our lives. And the same could be true of AI. If the AI bubble were to burst tomorrow, the research and development that had gone into the technology would still exist, and the technology would still have the potential to revolutionise the world. There might just be a few bumps in the road along the way. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave me a like and subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment below with your thoughts. Thanks for watching.